Hello, everybody. David Shuster here. Some of Donald Trump's strongest supporters are now questioning his mental health. White House staff and conservative media figures say the Trump actions the past 2 weeks have been especially troubling and unstable.
I'm going to say this at risk of my job, Kelly, but what President Trump is doing is insane. It is absolutely insane.
Steve Liesman on the Trump-friendly CNBC spoke about the U.S. trade war with Canada. Trump has justified the trade war and the stock market crashes with a string of evolving claims. First, Trump blamed Canada for fentanyl in the United States, even though less than 1% comes from Canada. Then, Trump said Canada doesn't spend enough on border security. Then Trump said Canada's military is getting a free ride from the United States. Trump followed that with Canada's trade with the U.S. is unfair. Never mind that the last trade deal with Canada was negotiated by Trump. And now Trump is blaming the tariffs on Canada's refusal to be part of the United States.
It is about the eighth reason we've had for the tariffs. And now he's saying he's putting 50% tariffs on Canada unless they agree to become the 51st state. That is insane. There is just no other way of describing it. And the trouble, Kelly, is that it shows there are no bounds around President Trump. This is very different from the first administration, where there were people around him who seemed to, I don't know what the word is, but smooth over some of the edges now.
This time around, instead of smoothing over Trump's edges and softening White House policies, Trump's staff are leaking to the media. Daily Beast headline, Trump's advisors are freaking out about his tariff chaos. Wall Street Journal, Trump's economic message is spooking some of his own advisors. Quote, Trump's aggressive approach to tariffs has unnerved some Trump administration economic officials, including staff on the National Economic Council, who are concerned that tariffs and uncertainty over the trade policy are tanking the stock market and fueling price increases on everything from energy to construction materials, people familiar with the matter said. The president's economic advisors have warned him that tariffs could hurt the market and economic growth, but he has largely been undeterred, the people said. President Trump has long been obsessed with the trade policy of one U.S. presidential predecessor.
President McKinley,
William McKinley, highly underrated,
has not been properly recognized.
William McKinley is an example. He was a big tariff president.
He was a strong believer in tariffs.
Yes, McKinley was a strong believer in tariffs in his first term, starting in the 1890s. But by his second term, McKinley concluded the tariffs had caused the United States more harm than good. So McKinley dropped the tariffs and embraced free trade. 30 years later, the United States enacted the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act to try and protect U.S. businesses and farmers, but the act made the Great Depression worse.
If we're using the McKinley tariff period or the Smoot-Hawley period to model economic policy, that is definitely a suicide mission. If you look back to the 1890 to 94 period that spans the McKinley tariff, the labor market failed with the unemployment rate going from 4 to 18%. We had two stock market pullbacks. One was a correction. One was a 30% bear market. I don't have to go through the history of the 1930s for you, but the Smoot-Hawley tariff, which started to make its way through Congress in 1929 and was signed in 1930, was obviously associated with an economic catastrophe that we refer to as the Great Depression. Smoot and Hawley were both run out of office in 1933, forced to recede in embarrassment into private life.
Those are facts. And Donald Trump has reportedly been given those facts by some of his White House staff. And yet, Trump continues to intensify his tariffs with Canada and Mexico. And when the U.S. allies hit back with retaliatory actions, Trump gets insulted and announces more tariffs. Some days, President Trump then pulls back, only to reapply the tariffs the next day and make new threats. Trump's sensitivity to perceived slights was also on display a few weeks ago in the Oval Office with Ukrainian President Zelensky.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because you're in no position to dictate that.
That's
Remember
exactly
this. You're in no position to dictate what we're going to feel.
The Trump outbursts and instability have caught the attention of political analyst James Carville.
We know that boy ain't right. We know that. We saw it. And we know that even in the world of Trumpian standards, that the kind of, oxymoron to say Trumpian standards, But we know this represents a significant deterioration.
By deterioration, Carville means the very thing that Trump's staff have leaked to the media. Donald Trump is more unstable and less rational than just a few months ago.
You know, I'm a guy, I like to ask questions. I like to speculate on things. That's why we have this YouTube channel. That's why you viewers and listeners, that's why we get along as well as we do. And I want to see the possibility that maybe I had a point considerably earlier than this when I pointed out on this very channel where Trump had red splotches on his hand, which I was told by any number of medical professionals that when you see that condition, the first thing that you suspect is syphilis.
Yes, James Carville is noting Donald Trump's erratic behavior and questioning if Trump has syphilis. The sexually transmitted infection can affect the central nervous system, leading to mood disturbances, irritability, confusion, and dementia.
I don't know if it's tertiary or secondary syphilis. I'm really not schooled enough, or all I know it could be gonorrhea. I mean, but there's some possibility that we have watched the effects of the latent STD, I guess called sexually transmitted disease.
Carville believes that Trump's erratic behavior may be due to other contributing factors as well.
And it could be a combination of being a fat slob, which of course he is. It could be that he can't sleep at night because his beached whale body can't allow the circulation it needs. I don't know. I'm not a sleep specialist or a medical doctor. But I think we should revisit the possibility of a syphilis diagnosis. And I know a lot of people that watch this channel, or some of you, or we get any number of MDs and professionals that are getting the comments, and some of you just well-informed citizens. But I don't think we can discount the fact that we saw was mad. I'm not going to.
And by mad, Carville doesn't mean angry. He means mad as in King George mad or crazy. Historians believe the king, with sores on his body, had syphilis, which caused or contributed to his mental instability and erratic behavior. All of this raises the question, is President Donald Trump engaged in an insane trade war, as CNBC calls it, and disregarding his own economic advisors because Trump has syphilis? There are some Democrats who believe Trump is destabilizing the United States at the wishes of Russia's Vladimir Putin, and there are other folks who think that Trump is deliberately crashing the U.S. economy so Trump's rich friends can swoop in and buy a lot of stuff for cheap. In some ways, it doesn't really matter what is driving Donald Trump. The end result is the same. The United States is facing economic, political, and societal chaos. And even some of Donald Trump's staff and supporters are calling his actions irrational and unhinged. By the way, the Trump administration has now been busted trying to close down crucial parts of the Social Security Administration.
Which is most of the federal spending is entitlements. That's like the big one to eliminate. Is that's the sort of $500 billion, maybe $700 billion a year.
I truly believe that they are trying to crater this agency and that they are driving it to a total system collapse that is going to happen a lot sooner rather than later. I believe they're trying to break it so that they can then turn the public against it and say, look, it didn't work. And then that allows them to then privatize it and liquidate it.
You want to hear something that is so horrible, given the fact that we are the richest country on earth, is that 30,000 Americans die every year waiting for an understaffed Social Security to approve disability benefits. Today, all right? Can you imagine somebody's old, they're on disability, they can't get the benefits, they die earlier than they should. If these cuts go through, the number of people who die will go up very significantly. That is not what this country is about, and we're not going to allow that to happen.
That video has generated a lot of comments on YouTube. One of the most popular is from Don, who wrote, "When Trump said, 'I don't care about you, I only want your vote,' it was one of the very rare times he wasn't lying." I hear you. I look forward to reading your comments about Donald Trump's own staff and supporters ripping him and questioning Trump's mental health. I'm David Shuster. Thanks for joining us.